Listening to your story, Charles, the thing that really comes across is that your superpower in life was sales. That's where you came from. That's where you spent the bulk of your career. Sales is your superpower.
Yes.
So with that superpower, how did you grow your sales and the number of clients? How many clients did you win in the first year, in the second year, and onwards? How did things sort of grow?
So, when we started trading in April 2019, I had no clients. By the end of year one, through knocking on doors and going to corporates, I had 175 active clients. So it was a pretty stratospheric growth straight away. Then COVID hit in 2020, and nobody wanted to, nobody was allowed to go abroad. But then, you know, there were lockdowns. But then, when the lockdowns were lifted, people wanted to get out of their four walls. So Cornwall was a mecca for holiday makers for around the world. So people were coming down there, and holiday home owners were suddenly, oh, hold on, so we need our waste collected, because the council was no longer doing it, and we were in at the right time. So we went from 175 clients to 475 clients through word of mouth, no advertising, and through the corporates. So the corporates were actually recommending us to private individuals, and then, believe it or not, housekeepers. So housekeepers, they heard about us, and we would provide our clients with two types of bags. We give them thick yellow sacks saying general waste on them, and that was for their general waste, and we give them thick clear sacks for their mixed recycling. And the housekeepers got to feel the quality of the bags, and the housekeepers were then telling their housekeeper friends, oh, have you heard about this company? So it was word of mouth, and we would actually do what we said we were going to do. Yes, we'll collect it. We'll collect the rubbish on those days. We'll collect on your changeover day, and that was, you know, how we started. So, at the very beginning, I said that I would collect all of your rubbish on your changeover day. So, as I started by myself, I was covering the whole of Cornwall every Friday, every Saturday, and then intermittently during the week as well. And that cost me money to do that, but it was the best decision I ever made, because people knew that we covered the whole of Cornwall and we covered it 7 days a week. I had that cost right at the very beginning. But as I picked up more clients within those various different regions within Cornwall, that increased my route density, which then increased my efficiencies, which reduced my costs. Well, the cost of, you still had the cost of renting a truck and going from A to B to C to D. So you'd already spent your diesel, you already paid for your staff, but so then having more bags that you could collect would make you more money. So therefore my routes became more efficient. So route density was very, very good. So by saying, yes, we did the whole of Cornwall, more costs at the beginning of the journey, but as we are now, we have the route density, and we're able to collect, throughout the whole of the country, that whole of Devon, the whole of Cornwall, and now we're going into Devon too.
Wow. So to make a waste business profitable and to work really well, you can cover a large area, but what you really need is the waste density.
You need to have multiple clients in the same area, so you keep your costs down, so you're not spending. You're not going, as we started off, I might do a couple of clients in Southwest and Porthleven, and then you do a client over in Portreath, then two over in Perranporth, and going up. But we were covering Cornwall, so we had the reputation of covering Cornwall. But then, it soon picked up where then we picked up 16 clients in Porthleven, and then we picked up 10 in Portreath and Porthtown and whatever. So it picked up very, very quickly. So you started off in the main areas of housing and getting that reputation, and then moving the truck from A to B to C to, and the housekeepers liked it, because if you started in Porthleven to start off with, they knew that they had to have all their rubbish out by 10 a.m. But the end of the route was down East and West Lewin for me. So those housekeepers knew that they didn't have to get their rubbish out until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it gave them time to do it. So mixing and building up that reputation, and building up the reputation, you're actually going to turn up. So some of the larger competitors, they are so big, they don't really care whether they miss it or not. We are whoever it is, and like it or lump it. But we've gone in and we've done what we said we would do. So we've built up a reputation of being able to collect when we said we're going to collect. Now, we make mistakes. Everybody makes the mistakes, be it that we've made a mistake or erroneous data has come to us. But I've now got backup in my fleet that we've got the trucks out, but if if a mistake is made, regardless of who's made the mistake, I've then got the backup that I can send a secondary truck out to go and collect that rubbish. And in the times of COVID, yeah, and where we really had the stratospheric growth, nobody wanted to touch rubbish. We can't touch that, that's going to have COVID on it. But my guys had gloves, they had the antiseptic sprays and everything. So nobody got COVID from being a waste collector. But, there was a lot of fear. But my guys loved being out on the road, because it was either that or sort of staring around the four walls of your house. So people were only too happy to go out and work. And, there were some operational problems that housekeepers wouldn't go into a property for at least 2 hours after the guests had left, and then the holiday home, then they would charge a premium. Well, we didn't charge a premium. We just said we're just going to collect the rubbish and collect it. We did. And I think there was a lot of fear that was sown by lots of people. But, if you've got the right equipment, you just roll your sleeves up and you go and get the job done. And we had the reputation of getting the job done. I use this term all the time. Rubbish isn't sexy in any way, shape or form, but it has to be done right. And the waste industry really has got its act together. So we've just spoken about energy from waste, but landfill. Landfill's got a horrible reputation, but landfill has changed. So for example, there was a place in East Cornwall, southeast Cornwall, called Conham Bridge, and they had a landfill site there, and they dug this huge, great big pit. And they lined the pit with this fabric, or well, not fabric, but material, so it couldn't get it, none of the nasties could get into the watercourse. But they put a plug at the bottom. They then filled this pit full of all the horrible, nasty stuff that couldn't be recycled or couldn't be burnt, and that was bad for the environment. And then they put a lining on top of all the rubbish. And the best way I can explain, it's a bit like the Teletubbies, where you see the mounds and the periscopes coming up. And basically what it was is that when rubbish decomposes, it produces methane. And what these mounds were, they were collecting the methane because gas rises, and we were collecting these pipes, and then that gas was then collated, and then that was taken away, and then that would be lit, and that would be heat water, which would turn into steam, that would turn the turbines that produce electricity for the national grid. When rainwater comes in, rainwater, so this is about as technical as I get, but through osmosis, this covering on the top would allow rainwater in, but wouldn't allow any gases to escape. So that rainwater would then permeate through all the rubbish, and that become pretty horrible liquid. But I said about this plug at the bottom. From time to time, they would open the plug, they would take away that dirty water, they would treat it, and then no dirty water would get into the water table. You didn't know about that. I certainly didn't know about that before I started. So waste is something that we're always going to create. It goes back, you're going to die, you're going to pay your tax, and everybody creates rubbish. So we have to deal with it. And now at the coalface, there's some pretty grim things that we deal with. But let's be realistic about it. And let's, sometimes, there are so many different types of plastic that some plastic, some you can recycle, but some you can't. I can't tell you, I haven't got a clue. But I would argue that plastic in its basic form is oil. And then the petrochemical industry has produced this product that won't degrade for 100 years. So why don't you burn that and get the energy out of that oil or out of that plastic, get the energy release, turn it into electricity, so energy from release, and then make sure you've got zero harmful emissions going into the environment. So at the top of that smokestack that we spoke about earlier on, they monitor the emissions, and they reckon, and apart from the fact it's 300 foot in the air and you wouldn't catch me on the top of that one, but they reckon if you stood on the top of that smokestack, that the air you breathe in there is actually cleaner than the air that you'd breathe in if you were walking down Oxford Street in London.